we have to admit that Singaporean people has, a working culture and diligent culture, which is good. Yeah, can you describe us some more on the working mentality of the Singaporean people in both government and citizen alike, please?
I think to understand the Singapore psyche, you would need to look at our history. Okay. And we are among, I would say, a rare group of countries where independence was actually thrust upon us. We received our independence suddenly at a stage where we were not completely prepared for it. We did not have any natural resources, and in its entirety, Singapore's survival was dependent on the quality of the people and the ability to work with the government. So there are a few important foundations, I would say, for Singapore, which led to our survival, our growth, and to some extent our success. And also these foundations are very important for us going forward. I'll just highlight three. First of all, I think Singaporeans accept that for us to survive and to continue growing, Singapore needs to be relevant. So it's always a question in the minds of the government, businesses, people. How can Singapore stay relevant to the rest of the world? The moment we are irrelevant, we are not important, we do not play any positive role in the international system, then Singapore becomes irrelevant, and therefore that will be a serious threat to our survival and our growth. To stay relevant, obviously, we have to be competitive. So whether it's our education system, whether it's how plugged we are into the international system, we need to be competitive, and I think that's something that all Singaporeans accept. Now, the second, I would say, pillar in our growth would be good governance. No country can do well if the governance is weak or poor or ineffective. So this is something that the people and the government has constantly focused on improving our system to make sure that the government that is required for a country like Singapore, whether it's the quality of the civil service, political leadership, and in terms of the people's trust in the government, remains of a high quality. Now, on that score, one aspect that we are very, very serious about is our focus in ensuring that our system remains clean, that corruption is never tolerated, is never accepted. So this is an important part of the Singapore psyche, and if you go to the ordinary citizens, the average person, or whether you go to government officials, this is something that all of us hold very strongly to. Lastly, as you would know, Singapore is a multi-ethnic, multi-religious society, and this is a very important part of the Singapore story, and it is a very important part of our survival and our growth as a country. It is not a country where one ethnic group or one religious group dominates everybody else. There is a plurality, and we see that as a strength. But it's something that is also fragile. So no effort or no attempt to disrupt inter-religious or inter-ethnic relations in Singapore would be tolerated. On the contrary, we are constantly trying to find ways to strengthen the links between the various religious groups and the various ethnic groups. I think these are the important foundations, I would say, of that Singapore psyche, of that Singapore mentality.
Between Singapore and Indonesia, as we know, there are some, Asian social cultural similarities. After long-standing of 50 years relationship, how do you see this social cultural movement between both countries?
I think as people in ASEAN, in Southeast Asia, the people of Indonesia and the people of Indonesia over the last, I would say, more than 50 years, have built a good understanding. When I'm very happy to hear all the time when my Indonesian friends say that when they visit Singapore, they feel very comfortable. They feel very at ease, and many of them say it's like our second home. They do not they do not find anything alien or difficult to adjust in Singapore. Likewise, I'm happy to say that Singapore friends who visit Indonesia also feel very comfortable in Indonesia. The language, the food, and the overall friendliness of the people. I think this is something that we should not take for granted. The challenge, I think, for our two countries is to be able to pass this on to future generations, to younger generations, so that it does not become something that we take for granted, and that we have to ensure that the younger generations who come after us also develop that kind of comfort and understanding in the relationship. I think that is the challenge for us.
Singapore and Indonesia have a set of different values, for instance about the hardworking and diligence in Singaporean people, and actually there are things that we from Indonesian can learn and improve ourselves, for good things, of course. But however, do you see some values in Indonesian people that can be learned from Singaporean people, perhaps?
Well, I'm always very, very uncomfortable about stereotypes and saying that one group of people behave in this way or another group of people behave in that way. I think the important point here is that we are constantly learning from each other, and we are constantly trying to build a relationship with each other. Of course, I would say that Indonesia being such a diverse country, even to say that Indonesian people are like this or like that would be difficult, because this is such a diverse country. What I would focus on is to see how we can synergize, and find strengths, shared strengths. For example, in Singapore, yes, we are very focused on going about things in a very organized and methodical way. But at the same time, we recognize that in today's global setting, you need to be innovative, you need to be creative. And here, I would say our Indonesian friends, at least in my experience here, with the young people and even with the older folks, creativity, the ability to adjust to changing situations and so on. These are very important strengths that our Indonesian friends have. And I think if you bring the two strengths together, I think that would be good, not just bilaterally, but for the region as a whole.
Okay, we can learn each other for better future, right? Okay.